Welcome Whoops. Sorry. Welcome everyone to the meeting of council. We begin with our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are in the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe peoples in the Williams and Huron-Robinson Treaties area. We recognize the long history of First Nations and Métis people on this land and show respect to them today. We acknowledge our neighbors, the Wata Mohawks and the First Nations of Moose Deer, Shawniga, Wasauksing, Magnetawan, Henley Inlet, Nipissing, and the Dokies. As we are learning from our First Nation partners.
You shut down.
John Jackson, can I ask you to turn your microphone off, please?
Oh, sorry.
As we are learning from our First Nation partners of the Wasauksing First Nation, I want to stress the importance of accepting our responsibility to take care of Mother Earth, her plants, her animals, and our shared peoples. We look to each other and the elders of both nations as a source of inspiration, guidance, and living memory of our communities. As settlers, we are grateful for the opportunity to meet here, and we thank all of the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. So I now call the meeting to order and ask for the approval of the agenda. There was an addendum item that should have received at noon. With that addendum, can I have approval to the agenda? All in favor? Gail, you're okay? Assume so. And is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? No, I see none. I move on. Then I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adopt the minutes of the special and closed session meetings of council held on April 24th, 2023 as circulated. Could I have a motion from Councillor Adams? And seconded by Councillor Getty? All in favor of approving the minutes? Thank you. And I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adopt the minutes of the regular and closed session meetings of council that were held on May 1st, 2023. Could I have a motion from Councillor Fellner? And seconded by Councillor Finson.
Gail, Finson.
Thank you. All in favor of the May 1st.
Join the meeting.
Thank you. And now I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adjourn the regular meeting to hold a public meeting for the following matters. Zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2022-0010-F and consent application number B 2022-0009-F for Bates, and zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2023-0005-C for Ustic. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins?
So move your motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Collins, or Councillor Adams, sorry. All in favor of moving into the public meeting? Also, we'll now hold public meetings for proposed consent and zoning bylaw amendment applications. In accordance with the Planning Act, Council will consider all matters placed before it prior to granting a consent or passing a zoning bylaw. Anyone wishing to receive notice of the passing of a zoning bylaw amendment and who has not submitted such a request in writing should provide their full name and address to the clerk. No one other than the prescribed persons may appeal an application under the provisions of the Planning Act. If they do not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin prior to the decision of council, then the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss the appeal. The purpose of consent application number B 2022-0009-F for Bates is to sever a rural lot, which is 0.66 hectares with 84.6 meters of frontage on the corner of Salmon Lake Road and Three-Legged Lake Road. The purpose of zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2022-0010 for Bates is to rezone the severed lot to a rural residential exception zone in order to recognize a reduced frontage and lot area and implement the recommendations of an environmental impact study. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which the notice of the meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property, posting on the Township of Seguin's website, and by regular mail on April 25th, 2023. Notice was therefore considered read in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Has the township received any correspondence with respect to these applications?
No correspondence has been received.
Is there anyone present in person in the council chambers who wishes to speak in favor of or in opposition to these applications? Please identify yourself by name. No, nobody here for that. Has anyone registered to speak to these applications via electronic participation?
John Jackson, agent for the applicant, is registered to speak to these applications, and I believe he is present.
Mr. Jackson, are you on screen?
Thank you, Your Worship. Apologize once again. Usually when I log in,
Okay.
automatically mutes it. But I'm happy with the staff recommendation, unless there's questions, Your Worship, from yourself or council. I'm certainly happy on behalf of the client.
Does council have any questions for Mr. Jackson? I see none, so we move on. The purpose of zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2023-0005-C for Ustick is to permit a cottage and dock with reduced setbacks to the lake, adjacent properties, and the road. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which the notice of the meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property, posting on the Township of Seguin's website, and by regular mail on April 25th, 2023. Notice was therefore considered provided in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Has the township received any correspondence with respect to this application?
No correspondence has been received.
Is there anyone present in person in the council chambers who wishes to speak in favor of or in opposition to this application? I see three hands. Mr. Ustick, are you here? Okay, why don't you go first? And when you approach the podium, if you wouldn't mind pushing the little button so the green light comes on, and the people that are online can hear you as well.
Great. So I pushed the button and I have some green light here. So I suspect you can hear me, and thank. Yes. Yes, my name is Sean Ostake, and I'm here with my wife Dana, who's also in attendance. And Dana is the registered owner of the parcel of land at 471 Star Lake Road, which is the subject of this application. And I thank your worship and council for the opportunity to be here today, and grateful for this process. We've certainly learned a lot throughout the process. We bought the property back in January, early January 2021. And there's been a lot of helpful resources and information thus far. And so we're excited to continue that process and engagement here. Just by way of background, Dan and I have three young children, 8, 5, and 3. And our intention when we first saw the property, when it was listed in 2020, was to establish a family cottage for future use and enjoyment by our family. Our children are certainly nature lovers and love the water. And so that is our vision, would be to have a single cottage on the property of modest nature, and also respecting the environmental and ecological considerations with respect to the wonderful property and area around the property. So we first prepared a minor variance in 2021, and then by way of background, we had a pre-consultation hearing and then a memorandum which came out of that. And it was determined that a zoning bylaw amendment would be a proper forum for this application. And so we did indeed prepare materials in that regard. And we also, with the help of the township, commissioned a environmental impact assessment that was completed by Mr. Al Shaw of Riverstone Environmental. And that report is from February of this year, so quite a recent environmental report. And the zoning bylaw application that we're here today to discuss was submitted officially on March 15th of this year and deemed to be complete in April by council. And I note there's been also a report to council from staff, just outlining some important background with respect to the application and also the request there. I'm not sure if it would please your worship if I summarize the request that we're asking for there. Okay, great. And so this is at page 2 of the staff report. And we are seeking the zoning bylaw amendment to permit various setbacks with respect to the property. The front yard setback requirement is 20 meters, and we are requesting a setback reduced to 14.2 meters. And that front yard would be indeed considered to be the shoreline of Star Lake. So this property is fairly narrow and constricted between Star Lake Road and Star Lake. So that's the front yard setback, which we do understand is a considerable request because we do want to respect that waterfront, absolutely. The interior yard setback requirement is 5 meters, and this would be the westerly lot line of the property. And we're requesting a reduction to 3.7 meters. So a 1.3 meter reduction request from the interior lot line. The rear yard setback requirement is 10 meters, and we are requesting a setback of 3.5 meters instead. And that would be facing the Star Lake or close to Star Lake Road. So that's the rear yard line. The dock setback would be a 9 meter requirement, and we're requesting a 3.4 meter requirement from the interior lot line, or sorry, proposing 3.4 meters instead of the 9. Parking setback is also noted there on that page 2 and on yes, just on that report. So that 7.5 meters to street line is required, and we're requesting 0 meters, noting that there is a 9 meter road allowance in addition to that. So starting effectively at the end of the road allowance is where we're requesting the parking. And there's also a 6 meter requirement from the side lot line, and we're proposing and requesting 3.7 meter setback. And that's to match the interior setback as well for the dwelling, so that the parking in the interior line would be parallel in line there. So those are the requests that we're seeking through the zoning bylaw amendment application. And indeed, we are hoping to build a modest cottage. When we first started with our minor variance, we had requested larger reductions to that setback requirement. And it became evident that we should keep this as constrained as possible, recognizing the narrow strip of land that we do have here between the lake and the road. And there's also some challenges with respect to the property in terms of the topography. There's quite a bit of sloping, and that you can see that on the sketch that we submitted. We tried to draw the lines, and we took that all from the material information that was available online in terms of how to prepare the application. So with the sketch that was submitted, you see that there's a proposed dwelling, and we have the dock by the water there, of course, and then the septic. Now, the septic is not requiring any reductions to the setbacks. We're fully compliant in terms of the setbacks required for septic. But we do, I've always felt from the very beginning with this property that this is the most natural and sensible place to put the dwelling itself and the dock to minimize the disruption to the features of the property and to be sensitive to the area. Quite importantly, the environmental impact assessment also did conclude that this was a valid proposal in terms of the placement of these 3 structures, if you will, the cottage dwelling, the dock, and the septic, indicating that the proposed development would most minimize the disturbance to the lands. And so we also do respect, of course, the environmental protection aspects of the SR1 zoning here. So we acknowledge, we do state that a residence is permitted and should be granted, but we also do want to respect the zoning with respect to the environmental protections. And you see there is a creek to the easterly lot line. The creek actually defines that easterly lot line. And so also keeping in terms of runoff and dock away from that creek and the vegetation in the water there, we do think that is most fitting to protect the environmental aspects of the property. And with that view of the view from the canoe, I saw noted in some of the policy information and statements, and that certainly sparked a warm feeling in one's heart, because really having that as a purpose is quite laudable. We want to make sure that we can be there for the reason that all brought us there in the first place, which is really nature and the enjoyment of our incredible surroundings, including in this township and abroad in Ontario. So being 14.2 meters away from the lake, we feel is an adequate amount of setback, especially with the slope, to keep the trees and the vegetation there and to really preserve that view from the canoe. And that's that was one of the things that attracted us to the property, was the privacy and the space in between adjacent properties and of course the natural features. So there is a reason why the structure is proposed where it is and why these setbacks reductions are requested. And it's really to make sure that we're working with the land rather than against the land and potentially having to move a lot more ground and earth than we would wish to. I've also done some in-depth research on some of the surveys applicable to this property and adjacent lands. And I do see that the parcel to the west used to be just one main plot of land that was divided into approximately 5 lots, I understand. And so the actual owner to the very west of us, who I understand has submitted an email with a few concerns or comments there. They did purchase an adjacent property from the city in 2012 by way of a property tax sale, I understand. So they actually have already a cottage there on part 8 of the original survey from the 80s. And then they also have part 11 now, which is directly beside our lot. So there's actually a total of about 130 to 150 feet between where we're proposing our dock and the neighbor's dock there, who I believe submitted that just based on the context of the email. So we do want to make sure that we're preserving the integrity of the area, the lake community, and as noted, we just think there's some fabulous opportunity for our family and memories there for the long term. So we do certainly seek the blessing of the township on the cottage plans to allow the reduced setbacks. And we certainly think it's really critical to focus on the environmental impact assessment. We would like to incorporate all of the recommendations made there by the professional environmental assessor. And we've actually gone through and highlighted it all and plan to make sure anyone working on this property is aware of those requirements. And we're not in a huge rush to build, but we are getting older, and there's going to be some stairs required down to the lake. So we hope to keep it moving forward with respecting the process and the recommendations made. And so we're looking forward to a positive engagement on this matter, and continue to want to put our best foot forward to work with any neighbors and other parties, and of course the township with respect to the development. And I certainly am happy to see as well within the staff report that there didn't seem to be any pressing comments or objections to the application by other regulatory bodies having jurisdiction over the property. So I was thankful to see that, and I really appreciate the time and the opportunity to be here today. And those are my comments in favor of the application.
Thank you very much. I see there are 2 other people in the audience who want to speak to this application. I remind everybody that we are here today for comments and only. We are not passing any zoning bylaws or anything else. So this is the opportunity for anybody to comment on it. Who's next? And could you check that the little green light's on, and then identify yourself and your address, please?
On now? Okay, my name is Byron Bailey, 465 Star Lake Road. Let me start off about 8 years ago. I was at this council meeting, and Mr. Khan was the mayor then. They were going to rezone the lot next to this one. Some real estate bought it off on the tax bracket, and the other one was sold on the tax bracket too. So now we're coming back 8 years later, and they didn't have the room there to rezone that. They didn't have the variances. So I can't see how anybody could possibly rezone this property. Another thing is Wayne Bigger, they have 100 acres over on the other side of the lot on the lake, and they wanted to survey or sever a lot so they could live on it after he retired. And the township turned him down, so he had to buy a property on Star Lake Road. So I didn't think that was very fair. And that is a septic system. You're putting it up on top of that hill on a bedrock. That's all bedrock coming down through there. So that's going to leak right into the lake eventually. Another thing is that's a fish sanctuary down at the bottom. That was designated as a fish sanctuary a long time ago. So I can't see how put a dock in down there. Okay. Now they're asked for all these setbacks, and they haven't even got it rezoned yet. So anyway, I guess that's about all I got to say. I got nothing against the people that want to build on it, but I just can't see it being rezoned, that's all.
Thank you very much for your comments. And it must have been 12 years ago you were here with David Kahn.
Yeah, probably why. Yeah, I couldn't
Because
quite.
there's been another mayor and me for a while in between.
Well, I just couldn't remember that long back.
Yeah.
My memory don't go that far.
Thank you very much for your comments.
One more thing, Dave here, Collins, as his mother and father used to own all that property there. And they told me it wasn't residential or nothing neither. They said it was, they couldn't rezone it. So that's about it. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you very much for coming to council. And Dave, do you want to speak to it and identify yourself and your address?
Sure.
With the little green light on?
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, my name is Dave Collins. The address is 477D Star Lake Road. Yeah, I received the notice, and actually haven't been in this industry for some 13 years with the City of Toronto and Development Review. I developed quite an eye for stuff. By the way, good job. Like what I'm about to say is not going to make you happy. Anyway, I have some real concerns. Like I'm looking at the parking now. This is right adjacent to the property line, so really you're almost parking right on the road at this point. Like the road allowance is right there. If the parking was somewhere else, that would not be as much of an issue. But the real issue I have is a septic. Is it a septic tank or a septic bed?
It's a bed in that.
Okay. Yeah, I have an issue with that in my past experience with septic beds on rocky slopes. I'm not privy to the environmental assessment. I don't know the design at this point, but I'm going to assume it's just basically a sand bed on rock. And at this point, I'm going to make the assumption that we're expecting leachates to form at some point, especially during the heavier runoff season where the ground is saturated, and we'll end up with leachate into the lake. As Byron had noted, it's a delta. There's nursery for the fish, as he put it. So that's a major concern for me as well, because that property, that part was noted environmentally protected. I'm sure it's on the plan somewhere. Yeah. So, and it's because it's virgin land. That's my real concern. It's not one of the properties that we're talking about that's already established and has amenities already on it. You're just adding another one or reconfiguring something else. So really my main concern is with the septic itself. If it was a holding tank, given the consideration, then that would be more appropriate than a leach bed that they're proposing. So, and the parking as well, where they could put it. Again, with a little more design and engineering, you can make it more to one side or the other of the property, just not on the road allowances, because I don't see that as a safe option. First off, there's a ditch in that location, or there should be, where he's proposing, because it's right at the crown of the hill. So literally there'll be a ditch, a car, and if you really look at the space, it's the width of a parking stall. That's it in the building. So it doesn't leave a lot of room to park many vehicles for one. He's got a young family. I'm sure he's going to have guests up as well, because I know I do. right? So that will be a problem in the future as I see it.
Okay, thank you very much for taking the time to make your comments. Just a quick question to Mr. Ostek. Have you spoken to North Bay Mattawa about your septic?
Yes, we have. And with our application, we did submit the permit issued with respect to that the septic system. And we have had a professional septic installer explain the class 4 septic system and unique sand that can be used to help with the leaching process.
Okay. Thank you very much. Does council have any questions for any of the presenters? Oh, Councillor Fellner.
You guys are a lot better at this than I am. I am looking at, I guess the question would be for the owner. Or maybe Taylor. I'm looking at page 50.
That would be page 50 of the council package with the sketch.
Yeah, figure 3, proposed site plan. Showing the setback from the cottage to the water and the setback from the septic to the water. So my question is there's a dotted, looks like a dotted red line runs through the corner of the proposed dwelling and then heads across the property. There's a break in it, then it's picked up. And what does that line denote? What is that line?
Your worship, in the legend on the EIS sketch, that's identified as the top of the bank.
That's the top of the bank. That's not the 20-meter setback.
No, the 20-meter setback, I believe, is the beige-ish color line. It kind of goes right through the middle of the dwelling.
Right.
Okay, Councillor Fellner.
Yeah, no, I think that, the problem I have with the application is the ask to decrease the setback to the water, because we generally will, never do that, right? So I'm just sort of looking at the configuration of the lot and thinking, well, if you flip the dwelling and the septic system, then you're gonna be able to keep the dwelling and probably the septic if you rotate it behind that 20-meter mark. That'd be my comment.
Okay, Councillor Getty. No.
Oh.
Councillor Collins, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yes, thank you, Mayor. On the application, or the report, I should say, from planning, we're still waiting to hear the comments from Public Works. Is Taylor, is he listening to the council meeting today? Or not
Yes,
Taylor, I should say,
Taylor's on screen.
Oh, no, Tom McLeod, I should say. Sorry, Tom McLeod.
Tom,
Yes.
it says on the staff report that Public Works, we were awaiting your comments.
Awaiting our comments?
No,
Or
awaiting
their
Director
comments?
Tom's comments. It's on page 6 of 9.
Right. Good. Oh, there you go, Tom. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you.
My feeling is the parking so close to the road, and that lot's on a bend too. So that's basically I'm thinking the yellow and black dotted line is the 33-foot from the crown of the road into where the lot is. This is what I'm assuming.
Yeah, I see where the proposed parking is of 3.5 meters from the property line. I don't have a problem with that, but again, I would have to see a little bit more detail
Yeah.
Site plan to really base my judgment off of, how it's going to work, especially with that corner, right? I don't think it'd meet sight lines. But again, I'm just looking at the map. I'd have to do some measurements and get back to everyone on that.
Okay. All right, Tom. And I guess my second question, Mayor, would be, I'm really concerned about, will this have any effect on our recreational carrying capacity? Simply because we've already been through that, and we've already set a precedence. And so going ahead with this, I'm wondering, are we going back to square one if we approve the application? That's my comments.
Taylor, can you address that?
Certainly, that's something, once there's a recommendation report, I can go into further details. On my understanding, most of the water quality policies is they tend to apply more so towards lot creation. But we can give a much more analysis in that when it's time to write a recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone who's registered to speak to this application via electronic participation?
I'm sorry, Mayor. Yeah, sorry.
Just get all the comments out first. Is there anybody that's registered separately?
No one is registered to speak to this application.
Mr. Ostick, go ahead. And if you do have an answer to some of those questions?
Well, in terms of the parking room there, we have measured that out on a couple of occasions. And we did measure directly from the road 9 meters in, and then from that 9-meter mark to where the dwelling would be. And that was indeed nearly 4 meters. And I do think if you see to the side of the dwelling, this was something that was added in the most recent version of the sketch. The additional parking to the east of the dwelling, creating actually a total of the 9-meter road allowance plus 5 meters for vehicular parking. And our proposed entrance does lead in and I think give you ample options in terms of the actual parking of the vehicles. Next, I appreciate it'll be next to the cottage there, but also then to the further side of the cottage, on the easterly side of the cottage. You see that we have the 5-meter line there, in addition to the 3.5 meters just up to the cottage itself. So we were hoping to use some of that space to the east to allow for parking. And we did have concerns about the children's safety and parking and exiting vehicles. We do feel like we're grateful for that road allowance of 9 meters. It does establish a fairly large distance between where the vehicles would be and the traffic passing there. And we appreciate that throughout Star Lake Road, when you turn and come to the north of the road too, there are some restrictions just based on the land and the development to date. So we don't think we would be sort of an oddity in that sense, that there's certainly precedent and even tighter parking restrictions nearby as well. Although we want to make sure that the parking is adequate and safe by the council standards, of course. So that I just wanted to make that comment because we've recently gone and really been quite diligent with the measuring tape there, make sure that these are accurate numbers with the parking in addition to the road allowance there.
Thank you very much. So the next step is for staff to take a look at the questions that have been raised, including Tom McLeod is our Director of Operations, who's the guy that has to plow the road and maintain the road. And then it'll come back to council with a staff report. But I appreciate your time and everybody's time in giving us your comments. Thank you very much. So now council will close the public meeting and reconvene the regular meeting. And for the first item for the Bates, first we have to close the public meeting. Motion that the public meeting is held for the following matters is hereby closed and the regular meeting is hereby reconvened. Zoning bylaw amendment application R 2022-0010-F and consent application number B 2022-0009-F for Bates and zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2023-0005-C for Ustuk. Could I have a motion from Counselor Adams? And seconded by Counselor Getty? All in favor? Thank
Aye.
you. Thanks, Gail. So I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby grant provisional approval to consent application number B 2022-0009-F for Bates, subject to the conditions set out in the decision. Could I have a motion from Counselor Bazinski
I so move.
and seconded by Counselor Fellner? All in favor? The consent application?
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks, Gail. Oh, this is the second part. Okay. This is a motion, bylaw number 2023-052, being a bylaw to amend the Township of Seguin zoning bylaw number 2006-125, property roll number 4903-030-004-06002, application number R 2022-0010-F for Bates is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins
So move your motion.
and seconded by Councillor Finson?
I second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, delegations, right? We move now into the delegations part of the meeting. And I would welcome Oscar Poloni from KPMG to present the consolidated financial statements for the Corporation of the Township of Seguin for the year ended December 31st, 2022. Welcome, Oscar. And you have the floor.
Well, thank you very much and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Very, very happy to be here today, provide a presentation of the financial statements for the 2022 fiscal year for the township. Just if I may, in order to assist with the presentation, want to speak very briefly concerning the audit and the results. So council, you do have a copy of the financial statements in your package. You'll notice that the financial statements are draft. They're draft pending approval by council. So under Canadian auditing standards, once council approves the financial statements, we can take the draft stamp off, we can put the signature on, and the statements will be done for the year. Our audit was completed in accordance with Canadian auditing standards. And under the standard, we don't say your financial statements are accurate, because that would require us to test every transaction. Rather, what the audit opinion does say is that the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects. And materiality, council, is the threshold of errors that as auditors we're able to absorb before we are either required to have them corrected or change our opinion. And it is for the public sector and for municipalities in general, typically calculated as a percentage of either the prior year's revenues or expenses. And so we use 2% of revenues. We are permitted to go up to 3% under the standard, but we've gone to 2 just to give a little bit of a lower threshold, more work, for lack of a better term. And that's resulted in a materiality of $500,000. Now, we use materiality in a lot of different ways with respect to the audit procedures. We use it, for example, to determine our sample sizes, but for council's information and for council's use, probably the most important use of materiality is it determines what's called a posting threshold. This is the level above which, if we have a difference that's uncorrected, we're required to report it to council as part of this presentation. And our posting threshold is 5% of materiality. So in the case of the township, $25,000. So any errors that we find 25,000 or above, we would necessarily report. And council, I'm very happy to announce today that there are no uncorrected audit differences above our posting threshold. So as I've mentioned, draft pending approval by council in the receipt of a management representation letter. Also a little bit of final cleanup in our files, nothing too onerous. We'd suggest council that there's been no significant matters that we have to disclose with you today. No disagreements or difficulties with management. We get very good cooperation and we get an excellent file and analysis from Michelle and the team at the township. No limitations on our scope where we've asked for information and weren't provided to us. And also no complex or contentious accounting issues to note. We also didn't identify any issues around internal control or weaknesses in your internal systems. And so we are prepared to issue the financial statements with an unqualified opinion. This is the highest level that you can receive under Canadian auditing standards. Once again, council, we didn't have any areas of identified risks and no changes to our approach either. With that, council, you do have the financial statements in your package. I know that there's communication that happens throughout the year between council and staff with respect to the financial results. I'm not sure if you'd like to go through them in brief or if your treasurer has already done that. And so council, pending further direction for you, that concludes our presentation. If there are any questions, more than happy to answer them at this time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Poloni. I think everybody's had an opportunity to review the financial statements in the package. Does anyone have any questions for either Mr. Poloni or our treasurer, Michelle Fraser? Gail, any questions?
No questions.
Thank you very much. It must be perfect.
Nothing's
But-
perfect, your worship, but it's very good. I'll tell you that. So.
Thank you very much for your time. And I'm just a question out of curiosity. Did you come to the office for an audit this time, or are we still doing remote audits?
We are, your worship, we are doing remote. We are providing clients with the option if they'd like us there to come. And there was some discussion in my mind if I was going to attend in person as well today, just to make the presentation. We are starting to get back on the ground with our clients, and I will confess, I've missed meeting people in person. It reminds me why I've stayed in accounting for 32 years. So we are still working hybrid. We do have some teams that are in person. At the end of the day, we'll let the clients tell us what they would like. What you do find, council, is for places like the township, where you have a strong finance department and they prepare basically all of the analysis, and it's what's known as a relatively clean audit. Those are more conducive to remote auditing because we don't have to start digging around. What I would suggest to you is, that's probably a compliment and a reflection on how your teams work.
Thank you very much. We miss you too.
We'll get there.
So I will welcome now Jack. Sorry, I've got a motion. Sorry, I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the consolidated financial statements of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin for the year ended December 31, 2022, and the audit findings report to the members of council for the year ended December 31st, 2022, as presented at the regular meeting of council on May 15th, 2023 by the firm KPMG. Could I have a motion from Councillor Adams? And seconded by Councillor Bazinski?
I second that motion.
All in favor of accepting the audited statements?
Aye.
Councillor Fellner?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Now we will receive our second delegation. Thank you very much, Mr. Poloni. So I believe we have Jack Jewell in the audience from the Burnt Lake Cottagers Association. So if you wouldn't mind stepping up to the microphone and finding that little green light, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, councillors, and staff. Good afternoon. My name is Jack Jewell. I am here cottaging in Seguin for some 45 years. And for the last 8 years since retirement, I am now a 3-season resident. I'm also president of Burnt Half Moon and McLeod Lakes Cottages Association. And I'm here with an overwhelming blessing from the members of our association. I also brought with me, or here with me, is Zoran Skulik, who is a neighbor, a member of our association, and someone who has also been very much involved in this issue from the beginning, as Jason and Greg can attest to. I'm here today to really make a simple request in our mind. And it's simply to update the current zoning bylaw to reflect what the official plan, the definition in the official plan of what a bed and breakfast is. I'd like to, just so we're all on the same page, I would like to read for you the current definition of bed and breakfast in our zoning bylaw. So this comes from the Township of Seguin zoning bylaw, section 13, definitions. And under bed and breakfast, it says a bed and breakfast establishment means a dwelling or part of a dwelling in which not more than 2 bedrooms are used or maintained for the accommodation of the traveling or vacationing public, in which the owner supplies lodging with or without meals for hire or pay, but does not include a group home. I would also like to bring to your attention the definition in the official plan, which was, my understanding is the current official plan was established in 2007. And if my math is correct, that's 16 years ago. That definition states, bed and breakfast establishments shall be permitted in single detached dwellings where listed as a permanent use in the land use designations in this plan, subject to rezoning. Council shall be satisfied that the following criteria be met. That criteria is A, the use shall not have a negative impact on the enjoyment and privacy of neighboring properties. B, the use is clearly secondary to the primary use of the dwelling as a residence. C, that the bed and breakfast establishment must be a principal residence of the owner or operator. D, the character of the dwelling as a private residence is preserved. E, that adequate parking facilities are available. F, that the use will not cause a traffic hazard. G, that the existing individual on-site sewage service is acceptable to adequately service the principal residence dwelling unit and the proposed bed and breakfast establishment. And finally, H, shall not be permitted in an at-capacity lake. I'll come back to that one in a moment. So I'd like to point out a couple of things as probably only reminders, because you probably already know this, but again, to make sure that we're all on the same page. I'd like to bring your attention to section 26, subsection 9 of the Provincial Planning Act, which says, the act requires municipalities to update their zoning bylaws to conform to the official plan within 3 years of that plan being implemented. Again, just as a reminder, we're talking about a 2007 plan that's 16 years old. Also, I'd like to bring to your attention, and you probably already know this too, the official plan states, and I quote, the council of the municipality shall amend all zoning bylaws that are in effect in the municipality to ensure that they conform to the official plan, unquote. I can't guess why the council of 2007 didn't do what they were supposed to do. I don't know whether it was an oversight. I don't know whether it was incompetence. I don't know whether it was a mistake. You know what? For our purposes, let's call it a mistake, okay? I'm here to ask you simply to correct a mistake, one that's 16 years old, incidentally. This mistake has caused much disruption, very unnecessarily, on a very small lake with a very well-established, environmentally concerned family type community. For example, and it's only one example, I could give you lots, but my time is limited. We have a lake which has a legal ban on motors in the water, period. An indication of our feelings on the lake and the fact that absolutely everybody, 100% of people on the lake had to agree to that in order for us to get that passed. We also have a lake that has been deemed by the province to be at capacity. As a result of this mistake, this mistake has allowed an increase in the use of the lake and the surrounding area by people who likely don't share the same values as the members on the lake. We are now stuck having to deal with this situation. But we would like not for this situation to happen again. And that's why we're here requesting this change. We have numerous meetings. We've had numerous meetings with counselors and staff. And one thing has been, there has been one very common comment. That comment is that we have too many discrepancies between the official plan and our zoning bylaws. Well, I'm going to suggest that here's an opportunity to get rid of one of those discrepancies. In our view, a delay with this matter is not acceptable for the following reasons. First of all, this should have been done 15 years ago. Enough with the delays, please. Secondly, it has been suggested in our conversations that this is something that could be incorporated with the rest of the zoning changes that are either in the process or will be in the process once the new official plan has been adopted. The reason that that's unacceptable is because it's my understanding that we are probably a year and a half, maybe 2 years away from that new official plan being implemented. That leaves a heck of a pile of time for somebody else to take advantage of the existing definition in the zoning bylaw, which is, I'm going to say, inadequate, to say the least. So, and thirdly, this would be one less thing that you'd have to deal with when the official plan finally is implemented. So I could go on for a long time, but I know that my time is running out. So I'm going to say this. We are strongly suggesting that council do the right thing. Correct this mistake by simply following the directions that are in the official plan and insert the definition of a bed and breakfast into our zoning bylaws. Thank you for your attention. I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you very much. Your request is very clear. The next step, I will ask council for questions, but the next step is to refer it back to staff with your comments. But does council have any questions or comments? Councillor Fellner.
Room's not that big. So just for my own matter of education, what problems does this cause to your, like what is there?
Oh boy,
legal-
how much time have I got?
No, but I mean, just in a nutshell, like,
So-
is this a short, is this a rental problem? Is this under the guise of a bed and breakfast, or what is it that you?
So
You guys are obviously really wound up, so I'm just trying to figure out why.
You noticed?
Yeah, I noticed, yeah. A quick study.
So I don't have to go over all of the downside of having rentals next door to one.
No,
Okay,
no, we don't need.
you've heard them all. You're already dealing with short-term rentals. I'm not going there. Okay. But when you have, here's a great example, because you know all the obvious ones. You know the noise and the parking and the parties and the fires and all of the stuff that's not supposed to be happening. But here's one that's not talked about very much.
Okay.
As I said earlier in my statement, we have a very family-oriented, tight community.
Right.
Because of that, we have some very senior women who feel quite comfortable coming to their cottage. By the way, we're in the middle of the bush. Okay, we're not Lake Joe, we're not Lake Rosso, we are back in the middle of nowhere. Just for the record, off grid. Back to what I was trying to say, we have seniors, women who have always been comfortable coming and spending time at their cottage on their own. Husbands back and forth, kids back and forth, whatever. But you know what? When you have a whole bunch of strangers all of a sudden running around because you have a rental situation, a bed and breakfast, they don't feel so safe anymore. They're not very comfortable when some strangers come wandering across their property or decide to put their boat on their dock or lakefront. That's something that's not talked about very much. And on my lake, it's a very I'm hesitant to use the word serious, but it's an issue on my lake for a lot of people. Like I said, you know all the other issues. I'm not going to go, but yes, that's what we're talking about when we're suggesting disruptions.
Okay, thanks.
Do you have a question?
No, my question was just going to be to Jason, if we could, I think you covered it, Madam Mayor, that it would be referred back to staff to bring.
That's how any delegation is handled. So all of your comments are recorded, both in the minutes and in a live recording. And now the issue is before staff to come back to council with a recommendation, but your request is very clear. So thank you for taking the time. And you will be informed when it comes back to staff, correct? Or it'll be in the,
Yes, watch the agenda.
watch the agendas for when it comes back, basically. And they're always on the website.
Yep.
So thank you very much for your, thank you. So I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the staff reports as presented on the agenda for the May 15th, 2023 meeting of council. Could I have a motion by Councillor Getty?
So moved.
And seconded by Councillor Fellner? All in favor of receiving the staff reports? Thank you.
Aye.
Thanks, Gail. Okay. And I have a motion that bylaw number 2023-057, being a bylaw to enter into a commercial lease agreement between Mike Beasley and the Corporation of the Township of Seguin for facilities located on Plan 163, Part Lot 18, Village of Rosso, known as 1142 Highway number 141, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins?
He's still present.
Oops, okay. How about a motion from Councillor Finson?
I so move.
And seconded by Councillor Adams? And I believe our treasurer, Michelle, may be here to answer any questions or explain it. It's pretty clear. It's a renewal of an existing lease with Mike, who owns the antique shop in Rosso. Michelle, do you have anything to add?
No, it's all in the staff report. We usually renew for 2 years, but because of the redevelopment of the Ross Memorial Hall that's just beginning, Mike is willing to accept a 1-year lease if council approves.
Does anybody have any questions for Michelle? All in favor of approving the lease as presented? Thank
Aye.
you. Thank you. This is Taylor. This is for information, I believe. And I believe Director LG is here to address item 7B, which is an update on the provincial policy statement and the official plan review. Taylor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Worship. We don't have too much to add beyond the staff report, but there are some changes coming with the provincial policy statement, which are quite significant. It is re-evaluating a lot of ways growth is occurring and where it's allowed to go. So it's probably the biggest change in planning since 2005. But some good news, we're hearing that site plan control might be coming back. When, where, and how it looks like, I don't know yet, but let's keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, I've talked to a couple developers who are actually quite pleased that site plan's back on waterfront. So does anybody have any questions for Taylor? It's really just an update and it's in a pretty comprehensive report. I think our CAO would like to speak to this.
Thank you, Worship. I'll invite Taylor just to expand on what this means with respect to our official plan review as well, because we have been doing some significant work over the last number of months, but perhaps Taylor, you can just outline what this means with respect to the impacts.
Certainly. We're going to have to redo our rural subdivision or rural growth policies because this does dramatically change it. It also does provide a bit of flexibility for us to look at our settlement area boundaries and how they can more accurately take into account the future of Seguin versus what they look like today. That flexibility is, I think, going to be some good news for us. The OP also has to be updated to reflect the MZO because we didn't proceed showing it in the official plan because we thought we should wait till it was approved first. So that will be another mapping and policy change required. Any questions?
Just a question. Given all these changes coming at us from the province, can I surmise that it's probably a good thing we haven't finished our official plan right now because they're not receiving any for now? Is that correct?
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Even if this would have been adopted a year ago, they wouldn't have made a decision on it. The province has been informally advising municipalities that until there's a new PPS in effect, they weren't approving new plans because what they didn't want, and it's understandable, is new official plans getting approved by them, which were going to be inaccurate or stale a couple months down the road. So I think you're going to see a lot of municipalities in our situation where they're either amending it or having to change it again. So, but your base question, yes, if we would have had it approved yesterday, it would already be out of date.
Thank you. So Councillor Getty has a question.
Sorry, Taylor, just if the province moves forwards with this, it gives us site plan control back 120 meters from the shoreline. Will that affect the drafts that you sent out in regards to increase in our site plan control bylaws from 20 to 60 meters?
The shoreline bylaws, the site alteration and tree cutting bylaws?
Yes.
Shouldn't be too much of an effect on those. Site plan control, if it comes back, will give us another tool to use. The shoreline bylaws are more akin to, I think, speeding tickets to municipality. You can enter in agreements and whatnot, but they're a bit more reactive than proactive, whereas site plan control can be required right out of the gate to ensure you don't get to that stage.
Yeah, what he sent out on Friday are bylaws. We're talking about zoning here, so they are quite different. So there's a silver lining in a slow official plan. Item 7C I believe is Lauren. And I will read that we have a motion that bylaw number 2023-047, being a bylaw to deem lots 5 and 6 on Plan M 271 pursuant to section 50, bracket 4 of the Planning Act, not be on a plan of subdivision. Property roll numbers 4903-010-002-24500 and 4903-010-002-24600, file number D 2023-003-H and D 2023-0004-H for work is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Getty
So moved.
and seconded by Councillor Fellner?
I'll second that.
Lauren, do you want to explain what this is?
Sure, thank you, Your Worship. So the proposed deeming bylaw would allow for 2 abutting lots on Lake Brasso to merge into one, resulting in 1 less waterfront lot on Lake Brasso. 1 lot is currently developed today. The second lot is currently vacant, with the exception of a few minor encroachments from the developed lot. The merger will rectify the encroachment issues and merge the 2 separate lots into one. I'm here if council has any questions.
Are there any questions for Lauren? Gail, you okay?
Yes, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no questions, so all in favor.
Aye.
Thank you. And I have a motion that bylaw number 2023-053, being a bylaw to amend Township of Seguin zoning bylaw number 2006-125, property roll number 4903-030-004-01200, application number R 2023-0009-F for 2555569 Ontario Inc., Salmon and Clear Lake subdivision, the lifting of the H symbol is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Do we have Councillor Collins here? No. Okay. Could I have a motion from Councillor Finson?
I so move.
And seconded by Councillor Adams. And if anybody has any questions, this would be Taylor that would answer these. The H symbol is basically a hold on a plan of subdivision until some criteria are met, and now they've all been met, so we lift the H so they can proceed, basically is what it is, isn't it? All in favor? Thank you. That's carried. And I have a motion that I think Director McLeod will speak to. Motion that as per recommendation staff report PW-RD 2023-004, the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby award tender number RFT 2023-016 Elsasser Road reconstruction to tower excavating in the amount of $887,964.34 plus applicable taxes to undertake the reconstruction of Road A off of Elsasser Road. Could I have a motion from Councillor Bazinski?
I so move.
And seconded by Councillor Getty.
Seconded.
And I see Director McLeod to answer any questions and explain it to us.
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. Everything's pretty well laid out in this report. This is actually a subsequent report. The last one was last year about the detail engineering. kind of get a real figure number of, okay, is this possible? We went out to tender, and to the best of our information that we have at our fingertips, it looks like it's a real possibility that we could proceed without dipping into taxpayers' money, because we have 6 lots along Road A, which would offset the cost of the road reconstruction and the other tasks that are signed with it, like engineering and hydro. I'm here for any questions you may have.
Does council have any questions? This is the beginning of more housing. All in favor? Thank
Aye.
you. That's passed. Go build us a road. We move on to item 8. All of which the first 2 are for information, and you have in your package the letter from, I believe it's is it from the principal? Oh, no, it's from a teacher at Perry Soon High School. Normally, we've given a scholarship in the amount of $500, and traditionally pre-COVID, I or a member of council would award that. As you can read in their letter, they are trying to, I guess, accelerate their graduation, take less time. It was a very lengthy procedure. So they're kind of saying, are you sure you want to come? And you will recognize that that is the same day as we had planned council barbecue for staff. So I think we'll give our scholarship with an important letter and not have to sit in the gym for 6 hours, if that's okay with everybody else. So that's information. And the next item is the date for the 2021 Good Roads Association in Toronto. It's really just a calendar item. If you want to put it on your calendar, that's when Good Roads will happen next year in Toronto. It's just for information. Item 8C is the Township Business Association budget. I'm going to kind of merge that with item 9A, which is the terms of reference for the business association, and I'll speak a little bit to it. This is a brand new committee of council. It's a very active committee. Both Ted and I sit on this as council representatives. Jason comes when he can. I will report that this committee is a bunch of doers. They're not just talking about things. They are busy. Their terms of reference are going to be approved in 9A, and they have requested a budget, which is again on page 173, with concrete items to, it's on actually 172. I can explain a little bit, but this would be a budget for 2023 through to December 31st. And then next year, they would come up with a full 12-month budget. The Seguin tour they're beginning to investigate with several local businesses how they can create a tour of the Seguin, of our points of interest for the cruise ship people coming in both languages, English and French. Mayor's lunch is a thought that apparently has happened in many other municipalities, to invite the businesses to come and have lunch with the mayor, and I hope council, because the way we're going to save money, I hope, is that council's going to be the waiters and waitresses. We are also looking to get an up-to-date online business directory. One does not exist even for the region or Seguin. The one that was given to us by our economic development officer didn't have the Rosso General Store, which happens to have been there for 150 years. And it wasn't listed as a business in Seguin. So there was a little bit of consternation there. And transportation has been identified as a huge issue for local businesses in terms of how to get staff to them. And 3 of us from the committee actually met with the headmaster of Rosso Lake College, who is looking to get us some more facts on how to rent us his 3 buses. And will he charge us by the hour or by the kilometer? Will it come with a driver who's paying with the insurance? But he's quite excited about monetizing the value of his vans when they're not moving students around. And that would give us a way to pick up potential employees and drop them at places of work, at least in the summer and possibly for the rest of the year. So that's what the budget is made up of. And the committee is respectfully asking for that money to do the work this year. Does anybody have any questions? So I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby approve the 2023 budget for the Township of Seguin Business Association attached as Schedule A. And could I have a motion from Councillor Fellner? And seconded by
Councillor
Councillor
Collins.
Collins. He's back. Okay.
Yes, I'll second the motion, Mayor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Great. That's approved. And now the first part of that comes next. I have a motion that bylaw number 2023-054, being a bylaw to establish the Township of Seguin Business Association and adopt terms of reference for the association, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Finson?
I so move.
And seconded by Councillor Adams.
I'll second it.
All in favor. And this has been reviewed by our clerk to follow in with the format for terms of reference. And I have a motion that bylaw number 2023-055, being a bylaw to establish the Township of Seguin Recreation and Culture Committee and adopt terms of reference for the committee, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion by Councillor Bazinski
I so move.
and seconded by Councillor Getty?
Second that motion.
And just for your perspective, this committee got its budget from all the individual rec committees from Foley, Rosso, Orville. So they already had a budget. All in favor of approving the terms of reference? Thank you. And now we move to, you've got written reports from Councillor Getty and I for the most recent Good Roads Association conference, but I call on each of you to give us all an update. How about we start with you, Ken?
May the 5th, attended the District of Parry Sound Municipal Association's meeting. And on May the 8th, 9th, and 10th, we attended the Phenom Conference in Parry Sound. And that's about all.
Okay. Councillor Bazinski.
I also attended the Phenom Conference in Parry Sound through the 8th and 10th. Thank you.
Greg.
On May 4th, I attended the Mayfest event at Humphrey Public School. It was well attended. They did a fantastic job. Staff were a great help. It was a real success. Again, May the 10th at the Phenom Conference, and on May the 10th, a committee of adjustment took place. Had a number of correspondence and calls from the Clear Lake Association that I've been dealing with, and that's it.
Thank you. Councillor Fellner.
I'm not good with acronyms. A week ago, last Friday, I was up in Sprucedale with the mayor. I think Kenny was there too. and Councillor Collins for a meeting of the municipalities in the West and East Perry Sound District. Very interesting. Super lunch. And then as well, I went to the conference that everyone else did in Perry Sound, which was basically a conference of all the municipalities in Northern Ontario, I believe is what that acronym stands for. Found it very interesting. There was some interesting speakers, but there was some very, very interesting things out in the trade booths. Some alternate energy projects. One, the south end of Georgian Bay was pretty fascinating that Trans-Canada Pipelines is trying to do, and just found a really informative, good conference. And the food was pretty good there too. Haven't had any park to park. That's coming later this week. Recreation committee and the pool meeting was set back a couple weeks, so we haven't had one of those since the last meeting. I as well had lengthy conversation with the lake associations in my ward about the confusion, I guess, some people have expressed about where council stands on the rental issues. That's it for me.
Thank you. Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Mayor. Geez, I've got quite a busy report here. I don't know. First thing, I attended by Zoom the Seguin Business Association meeting on the 4th with everyone on the on the committee and including the mayor. On the 5th, I attended the District of Perry Sound Municipal Association as a board member in Sprucedale. At that meeting, we had a chance to talk with Norm Hofstetter, who's the mayor of Perry, and he's on the same program as we are with septic systems, approving our own applications for septic systems. So I heard that there's going to be a meeting about this about these septic applications in the very near future with our MPP, with MPP Smith. I also attended the FNOM meeting on the 8th and 9th and a DSAB meeting on the 11th. It was a short meeting, the DSAB, and we passed only one resolution. They were coming off a conference in Ottawa at that time. On Friday, the 14th, I visited the Isabella Lake boat launch, where staff is creating new parking at that site, and they're doing a great job. The only thing I see we're going to need is some signage in the near future. On the weekend, the sand sweeper appeared in Maple Lake Estates for the first time in a couple of years and cleaned the roads of winter sand. I was happy to see them. And last but not least, I attended the Seguin Firefighters Barbecue. It was very well attended. The food was spectacular. Thank you, Anna. And of course, thank you to the fire chief and the deputy for barbecuing some of the best burgers and sausages we've ever had. We even had a bouncy castle for the children and a magician who I thought was pretty damn good. I mean, he pricked a balloon and he got a bunny rabbit in the end. So having said that, I wish that all Seguin firefighters a safe 2023 and a heartfelt thank you for all the work they do in keeping our residents safe. That's all I have to say for the month of May.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Councillor Collins. We expect magic tricks to be repeated one day in front of council.
Well, Jason had an idea of a magic trick, but I'm not going to repeat it.
Councillor Finson.
Hi, I went to Farnham from the 8th to the 9th, and I started out my day with a walk along the Georgian Bay with the young lady from Wasoxing First Nation. It was wonderful. It was a really, really lovely way to start the day. So we did, about 4 kilometers, but she told us all about the rocks and it was wonderful. It was really lovely. I had a governance committee meeting for Belvedere Heights on May the 10th. Attended DSAB, which was a fairly short meeting on May the 11th. I attended the Recreation Committee meeting, and we discussed working groups. And just while I got everybody's attention, I would like to reach out, and I will reach out for people to join a working group with me for the float for the Perry Sound Christmas Parade. For turkey dinner, that's Terry Fellner's idea, and I would like to start forming a working group for that. And the other one I'd like to see is a working group for the Halloween event that used to take place at Humphrey, and that's Dominique and I were talking about. So those are the 3 things that I said I would try to get working groups together for. I also went to Rosso Community Hall meeting on Zoom. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. It's very exciting to me. And today, I'll say today I had a meeting with Karen Wienecke, and it was wonderful. Wienecke, she's just amazing. It was a wonderful meeting. We went a little long, but we had our one-on-one. And I also wanted to say a shout out to the sand cleaning, the grading of some of the roads. I was up Burgess Road visiting a friend, and oh my goodness, they're so happy up there. I mean, things are looking really good for this time of year, and the grader did a fantastic job, and I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that. I sometimes forget to mention those things. Just a few phone calls or emails regarding boat docking, and Taylor is taking care of those. Other than that, that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your float. Send me the details, because several of the people on the pool fundraising committee would like to be involved in the float. They seem to think they can have a swimming pool, probably a hot tub, on a float advertising the coming pool. And they were keen last year. So just send me the details and I'll get some names signed up for you. And you can put me on the committee for the turkey dinner.
Awesome. Thank you.
So May 3rd, we had the Business Association meeting that Ted and I attended, and today you have the results of that with the terms of reference and the budget. May 5th, many of us in Sprucedale for the District of Perry Sound. May 8th to 10th was Phonom. And May 11th, Taylor, Jason and I met with Mike Smith, and this is big news. The new marina in Rosso will be opening as a marina in June. You will recall this came to council 5 years ago and got delayed by a single resident in Rosso. So it's been a long time coming, and Mike has been incredibly patient, but it's going to open as a marina this year and stores and possibly restaurant next year, but he wants to keep his boating customers happy first. Couple dates I want you to remember. First of all is Thursday, June 29th. Council will be cooking barbecue lunch for staff. I'm just waiting for some numbers from Dominique, and then I'll send out a list of volunteer assignments, but it's usually kind of 10:30 or 11 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon that day. Also on Monday, July 10th, you should have received the invitation from Valerie for the all-day strategic planning session. That's a command performance for everybody on council. And just to alert you to the fact that the next meeting of council is June 5th, and Ted will be sitting in the chair that day. He is acting deputy, And I will be there, but I may be late due to an appointment in Toronto. So Ted will be sitting in my chair on June 5th. And a reminder to get your comments to Taylor on the 2 new shoreline bylaws. When I clicked on them at first, I kind of went, whoa, there's a lot of pages here, but they're easy reading and they're a big improvement on where they are. I don't know how everybody wants to do their comments. I was able to just go in and type my comments in red throughout the 20 some pages that each of them is. And Jason, I think our CAO has something to add.
Thank you, worship, members of council. Just a couple updates from staff around what's happening within the organization and the community. The township was actually very well represented at the May 11th launch of the Georgian Bay Biosphere Regional Climate Action Plan. Mayor McDermott joined me and a number of staff were there. Our very own Director of Strategic Initiatives and Chair Forrest Pengra of IceCap was there and provided some opening remarks. We were very, very well represented, sorry. As I've heard from several members of council, the strategic plan has kicked off and progress is underway with respect to some of the initial engagements with Karen Wojnicki, our consultant leading the project. The senior leadership team will be participating in a workshop led by Karen on May 30th. And the project leads are also in discussions with local schools about soliciting youth input into the strategic plan. I know an area of priority for some members of council. Over at the rink, Wednesday ball hockey will be wrapping up in just a few more weeks. And then crews will start to prepare and install summer ice with our first ice rental set for July 3rd. The Friends of Seguin Public Libraries hosted their annual spring tea and open house at the Christie Branch on May 2nd. The Humphrey Branch is offering after-school reading and crafts. The new accessible circulation desks have been very, very well received. And staff continue to work on their summer programs and community engagement to support their new strategic planning exercise as well. Family Fun Day celebrating community volunteers will be happening at the Rosso Waterfront on June 23rd. It will include a water ski show, barbecue, games, and opportunities for staff to get resident input on our strategic plan as well. Something else we've been doing for a couple of years now, but our public works and community staff attended a seminar about working around species at risk hosted by Georgian Bay Biosphere this past Friday. This educational offering helps to ensure that our work crews get their work done with minimal impact on the environment. And something to keep an eye on, our public works team has engaged a consultant to get public input on a new waste management strategy. So keep an eye on our social media feeds, our website, and around our public spaces, including the landfill and transfer stations for calls to participate. As Councillor Collins spoke to, our Seguin Fire Services hosted an appreciation barbecue this past Saturday. It was an absolutely stunning day, terrific turnout, not only celebrating their hard work and commitment day in, day out, but also recognizing years of service. And there was a number of significant milestones achieved with recognition from the Ontario Fire Marshal, including some 30-year and 25-year recognitions. So goes to show what kind of commitment we've got with our Seguin Fire Services, great group of dedicated volunteers. And last but not least, council and staff are always encouraged to join us, but especially on June 1st at 9:30 a.m. to raise the pride flag on our soon-to-be installed community flagpole out front here at the township offices. This is an important representation of our township's commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, and all are welcome to join us. Thank you, Your Worship.
Everybody, it's busy. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the correspondence as presented on the agenda for the May 15th meeting of council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Fellner and seconded by Councillor Collins?
We'll second it.
All in favor? Thank you.
Aye.
And I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby proceed to a closed meeting at 4:04 PM in order to address matters pertaining to a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality. And this relates to the ministerial zoning order and development charges and litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals. And that refers to short-term rentals and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose related to short-term rentals. Could I have a motion from Councillor Finson?
I so move.
And seconded by Councillor Adams.
I'll second.